Welcome again. Today is session 10, and we will have a talk by Mr. Youssef Hosni from the University of Wolo. He will give us a session about the data science life cycle. So go ahead, please, and thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, so Assalamu alaikum everyone. It's nice to have you, and I hope you can found this presentation beneficial to you. I'll just start with a quick introduction about myself. So, my name is Youssef Hosni. Currently, I'm a PhD researcher in computer vision. I'm working on developing real-time computer vision system to early diagnose some diseases such as depression and some respiratory problems and so on. Also, I have been working as a data science researcher in the medical field for 3 years, and also have been working as a data scientist in Al-Adin, which is a startup in Egypt. So I have like background in the healthcare domain, and also in the marketing and finance domain. Also, I'm working as a data science writer. I like to share my passion about data science and AI through my writings and also through my educating. So I'm working also as a data science instructor at Science. I'm also quite active on LinkedIn. So if you would like to ask me about anything or to contact me after this presentation, I would like to receive your questions or message here or here. Yeah. So let's start our presentation itself. This will be our agenda. So we will start first with a quick overview over the data science life cycle itself, and then with the process itself. So we start with business understanding. We will go through it, and then the data collection, and the next step will be the data cleaning, then the data exploration, feature engineering, modeling, and we will talk also about the deployment. This will be like more more than a theoretical part, or we will go through all the steps we have to go through in a data science in a data science project. And this will be like part one, and part two will be a more like practical case study. We will go through Jupyter Notebook and go through a step by step for a data science project. Of course, it will be just like small data science project, but we will try to cover most of the steps we will mention in the first part of the theoretical part. Yeah, and also if you have any question, just like raise your hand, and I will answer it during the presentation. No need to wait until we finish. Just like stop me at any time, and I will be happy to answer your questions. Yeah, so yeah, as we can see here, this is a very famous image from IBM. It's called the CRISP DM, I think. It shows the full data science life cycle. So we start by at this step, which is business understanding. So, like always, the first step is to understand our business and its inquiry, and what we are trying to answering through the data and through applying like machine learning and so on. So this is like always the first step to understand the business problems, and then we try to collect the data. If we don't have it already, we should like collect it depending on our business understanding and our questions we are trying to answer through the data. The next step will be like data understanding. So we have to understand the data through data exploration, then data preparation. So which is like include data cleaning, the feature engineering, and so on. We will talk like more about each step through the presentation. Now the data is ready for the modeling part. We start to model the data depending also on the task we are trying to do. After the modeling has ended or we train the model, we start to evaluate the model, and this should relate to our business question and business inquiries and what we are trying to do. And then it ends with the deployment. And the most important part that we can see that it's very iterative process. So we just like it, we go from one step to another, and we can like after that return back. For example, like we can start with the data with the modeling, and then we see that we need to do some feature engineering. So we return back here, and then we can see that we have some problem with the data, so we go back to the data collection phase and so on. So it's very iterative process. It depends like on how we progress with this pipeline. So yeah, you will in most of the project you'll have to go back to some of the steps and go back and forth and so on. Yeah, so this will be like our agenda today. We will cover each step in more details, and then also we will go through the practical part. We will cover most of the steps except for the deployment part. Yeah, business understanding. This is like always the first step, and this is like the most important step in a data science project. And like some people call it like it's if you done it right, you have done like 50% of the project itself, because like uh, we have to first to understand business problem and what we are trying to do, because all of the other steps will depend on this step. If you have right understanding of the data of the business problem and what you are trying to do, then you will collect the right data, then you will do the right feature engineering and the right modeling and so on. So this is very important part. You should like also this requires very good communication skills, because you will have to work with some non-technical audience, such as a CEO of your company if it's startup, or the stakeholders, or or people from the marketing team and other teams. So you'll probably work with with people from different backgrounds to be able to understand what you are trying to do, what is the variable you are trying to model. Whether it's like some you are trying to model some price for something, you want to forecast something. So what is the problem itself, and also whether this problem was handled in the past or not. But if it was handled, so what was the performance? What we are trying to do now? We are trying to enhance performance, or we're trying to enhance the speed. What we are trying to do now, and how it was done in the past. Is this will be like just it will be integrated in an existing system, or it will be just standalone? How the user himself will benefit from this, or it just will be something internally the user will have not to deal with it, and so on. So we have to like have framing the problem itself, and trying to formulate the question, or trying to understand from the data, and are also understanding in what context this project will be. Another perspective, or another point of view should also see is the technical requirement and constraints, because this will also affect all the other steps after that. So for example, what is the latency required? Should we have to work in a real time? If yes, what is the latency? Should it be like in millisecond, or in seconds, and so on? Because this will affect our model choice and how the model will be deployed itself. Um, how many predictions are expected per minute, and so on. So we should, whether we have our own server, or we have to deploy our model on a cloud service. So we should like from the beginning know our technical requirements and technical constraints, because this will also affect all the other steps. So if we have like problems with that the model should work in a real time and should have very short latency, so we can't like work with the deep learning models, for example, because it will require a lot of time, and so on. So this will also, like the first step, the business understanding, and like formulating the problem will affect all the other steps after that. That's why, as I said, it's one of the most important steps in a data science life project, that you should have very good understanding, and you should like give it the needed time, uh, and like communicate with people from other teams to have like solid statement and solid problem formulation. Then you can like go from this step and start in your project itself. Like after finishing the previous step, now you have good understanding of the project itself. You start to see what data will answer the questions you have extracted from the first step. uh, we come like to the second step, which is data collection. As it's defined here, it's the process of collecting data to solve the problem statement. uh, as I mentioned, like having very good understanding of the business problem you are trying to solve will guarantee that you collect the right data. of course, as I mentioned, like in all of the other steps, this is an iterative process. I can collect some data, but after like proceeding in the project, I found that I need to collect more data, or I need to collect more features and so on. So I can return back to this step, but from like I should like if I have good understanding, so I can collect at least some relevant data. There are like a lot of tools that and sources that we can collect data from, depending on the domain we are working in, and also like the data type itself. So here are some common. Of course, there are other depending on the domain and as company you are working in. So you can have the data on a local database or a local device. Then you will use like for example pandas or OpenCV or any Python library that you can like lose the data with. You can also scrap the data. So this is always used in like in the marketing domain and so on. This is like one of the most common data collection ways, which is that the data is stored in a relational database, and you collect the data from it using SQL or other query language. This is like a common. This is are like the most common source. There are of course other common sources that you can collect the data from, but in the end, that you should like collect relevant data that can answer your question. Yeah, there is important warning that you should like if you collect the data or you gather the data yourself, it's not already collected by the company. You should like be fully aware of the ethical issues that related to the data collection and data privacy, because as you know, data is very important uh, tool, and you can like affect people opinion, and you can like make a lot of profit out of it. So you should like make sure that, especially if you make profit out of the data that you are um, it's legal to use the data and you are allowed to use the data, else there might be like legal consequences and so. So now you have collected the data. In most of the cases in real time, in real world data, the data is not clean. The data is not ready to be used. Should first do some data cleaning, remove the noise from the data. Yeah, and this always, as it's well known that that scientists spend like 80% of their time cleaning the data. Of course, this can vary from project to project and from data to data, but yeah, you will spend a lot of time doing like data cleaning, and this also is a iterative process. So you clean the data, then you can do some data exploration, as we will see, and you will find that there is some problems in the data, so you return back and so on. Um, it's very important, as I mentioned, as it's well known. Also, this picture is a very famous that garbage data in will result in a garbage result. So you should like make sure that your data is clean, and also the next step, which is a feature engineering. This is like uh, you have to do a lot of effort in it, so you can like give the model good data that will get after that good results. Yeah, so these are some common sources of noise. So one of them is the missing data. Um, so this always happen in data collection. So sometimes you collect the data, but some feature are missing due to various reasons in the data collection phase. You might also have some errors in the data itself due to errors in data entry, especially if it was collected by human, or also sometimes the sensors. If your data is collected by sensors, they somehow might have some errors due to the environmental reasons or whatever. Also, the changing schemas of the data collection, this can also affect the resulted data after that. Problems in data merging. So if I'm trying to merge data from different databases or from different tables, this also can affect our data and will result in noise in the data. So all of this will result after that the data itself is not clean and cannot be used. I have to do some cleaning. So for example, for the data cleaning, for the missing data, first I have to understand each feature and how it was collected, so I can know if the data is missing, is not was not collected, or it just cannot be existed. Like for example, if I have a feature that I have how many older brother do I have, So I might have no browser, so it will be 0, and it might be like missing data also. So I should like know the understand the feature itself and how it was collected and what it refers to, so I can understand when there is no data in this feature, whether it's missing or it was not collected. This will be important when I deal with it after that. There are some common ways to deal with the missing data, for example. So I can impute the data, or give it the value of the mean or the median of this feature. I can use predictive model to impute the missing data. I can just drop the rows with missing values. So this depends on our data and how the data itself is missing. Is it missing at random, or some certain value are missing, so this cannot be dropped, and so on. So this is like needs some research about the data itself, and you have domain knowledge and understanding of how the data was collected, and also you have like the practical or hand-on skills to how to deal with missing data. Yeah, another common noise in the data is outliers. So outliers are defined as they are the data points that differ significantly from other observations. Also, this depends on the domain itself and your understanding of the domain and in which context this data was collected, because it might be an outlier, or it might be like actually it exists in the real scenario, but really it's not very common, but it's a true data, so you can remove it or not depending on the context and the project you are working in. So is another common data noise that exists, the outliers. But yeah, as you can see here also, it's very important that you have domain knowledge and have understanding of the data itself, because this will affect your choices and affect your decisions after that. Like as I mentioned in the missing data and also in the outliers, it is very important that you have domain knowledge and have understanding of how the data itself was collected and what does it represent, because this will affect your decision when you deal with this step and what approach you will take after that. Yeah, after you have done like some cleaning for the data, you will start to have like deeper understanding of the data, which will done through the data exploration step. So you start with uh, doing some data analysis. You can like start doing some plotting to uncover the data characteristics and data statistics. Um, yeah, some plots like this, and after that, yeah, we can calculate like some descriptive statistics such as the mean, the median, the variance, and so on. Now we will have like some initial understanding of the data, the data distribution, and the values of the data. You can after that have like some deeper understanding of the feature by visualizing them and visualize like the relations between each feature with the target value, if it's like a regression problem, or with the label if it's a classification problem. This is very important because when you have like good understanding of the data, it will be very helpful in the next step, which is the feature engineering. Whether should I remove some features, should I like combine some feature with each other, um, um, what are the correlated feature with each other, so I might like remove some of them if I have like a lot of features, and so on. So it's also very important step that you understand your data, because it will affect your decision in the next step, whether the data have some long tail, so I have to do some pre-processing for it or not, and so on. So as we will see also in the practical part, we will have to do some plots and see the distribution of the data with the target value, so we can have a better understanding for our data, and we can like make good feature engineering, because like feature engineering is a very critical step, and especially if you don't if you'll have to use uh, um, machine learning model, not a deep learning model, so you have to give a lot of attention to the feature engineering, so you can get most of the data and can like uh, make this task easier to the model. Yeah, so here is a feature engineering. Feature engineering is a process of transforming the data itself to a representative data set to your model in the best way to get the best results. So we will do some pre-processing, some processing to the data to make sure that it is in the best way for the model to get results out of it. This requires that you have very good understanding of the data itself, which is done through the previous step, which is the data exploration, and also that you have domain knowledge, so you can like understand what each feature can represent and how it was collected. So you have like understanding of the data and also the context of this data. We can divide the feature engineering into two main steps or into two main categories: feature pre-processing and feature selection. Feature pre-processing includes feature scaling and handling text and categorical features. Like the first one is handling categorical data. So most of the machine learning cannot handle text data. Like in example here, if we have a color feature, so it might have red, yellow, green, blue, and so on. So the model can like deal with text data or categorical data. It just can deal with numerical data. So we need to convert this category into numbers. So one common way is through one-hot encoding, in which we just like uh, transfer or transfer each category into a feature itself, and when the value is for a certain category, it will take one and the other will take zero. This is like a common if you have like small number of categories. If you have like large number of categories, you can use other techniques such as like hashing. So if for example I have um, maybe 1000 color or something, so this means that I will have to if I used one hot encoding, I will have to transfer them into 1000 feature, which will affect our model after that and will not be the best approach to do. So we can like handle it in different way depending on the meaning of the color itself and or the feature itself and the domain we are working on also. Uh, like one way is through hashing, so just like include these categories. So for example, here red will be like 00 and green will be 10 and so on. So depending on how we would like to encode it, so we can just like have each feature and try to encode it into a certain code for each feature. This is one way we can like handle it. In other way, depending on the meaning of the feature itself also. Um, the other the other step in the feature pre-processing is the feature scaling. This is also very important that we have like all the feature to be on the same scale, especially when we use some machine learning algorithms that depend on the distance and distance matrix. So we need to make sure that all of them are of the same scale. Else it will consider like the one with high value is have high importance. Like for example, if I have two feature, one of them is the distance in kilometers, so and the other is like for example is the price. So they are might be in a different scale and have different meanings. So if they are like one of them have a higher value, this not mean that they are that have higher importance. So that's why we have to like make them on the same scale. This can happen. This can be achieved uh, by min-max scaling, in which we will have like values from 0 to 1 or -1 to 1, and the data will be distributed in this scale. So we can like do it with this equation, or we can just use standardization, in which we will have like the data will have mean of 0 and standard deviation of 1, and can be achieved by this also. But like the goal, it's in the end is to make it have the data have the same scale. So when some one of them increase, this means that they are like on the same scale. So uh, the model will not like give some certain feature more importance than other depending on its scale. Yes,